Okay, alcohol in your stress system. This was a topic I debated on even doing. A couple years ago, I was speaking at a conference. I won't say anything more than that so that nobody knows which conference it was. And I was supposed to be speaking on, well, as I do, the stress system. And this was for specialized training units. And the one thing that I was told was that um talk about all the stress stuff, whatever, just don't tell anybody not to drink alcohol. And I should have brought this up during when I was speaking at the conference, because this is such a big topic and a big subject. And sometimes it's really understanding what's going on in your stress system um, can make all the difference in the world in how your body's handling the stress and in what how your body's reacting and how it really does deal with stress. So what I'm going to do today is I am going to dive into your actual stress system. I'm going to get into some science and really just dig into it so you understand what it is doing to you and why certain issues are happening with alcohol. So I have some notes here so that I will dive into this. Okay. So with your stress system, we have three parts to our stress system. The one part is your adrenals, and they are in charge of 50 different hormone responses. So I'm going to dive into all of the different hormones, not all of them. I'm going to dive into some of the hormones that alcohol does affect. So it affects your sex hormone. So I hear very frequently about a lot of guys who are on testosterone shots. That is a whole deep dive that we are going to get into. I'm actually working on a training for that right now to understand why testosterone shots, why you need to be on them for the rest of your life, and why it doesn't fix all of your symptoms. But when you have low testosterone, there could be other things at play as well. Low estrogen, of which alcohol also lowers as well. When there is an imbalance in you, it can create a whole havoc of things: erectile dysfunctions, your testosterone lows, orgasms. You can't even have an orgasm anymore, even if you can get erect. There's with females as well, it's you don't have that desire to have sex anymore. Everything starts lowering with that. So alcohol can definitely have a big impact on your testosterone, estrogen, sex hormones going through. And then we dive into cortisol. So cortisol is something for you guys that is pushed through your system frequently. And when cortisol is really pushed through your system, it over time, because it pushes through, it doesn't know when is a stress where you're completely on a hot call and you physically need that adrenaline and glucose in order to fight the fight and fuel you for the fight that you're physically fighting. It doesn't know that between something that's mental. So family guilt of your kids, putting on your uniform and just prepping yourself mentally for what may happen on shift. So when this keeps happening a lot, your body sends it out, cleans it up, sends it out, cleans it up. And over time, your brain says, hey, we need to slow down this cortisol. So that's already happening in a lot of you guys. And that's where you get no energy in the morning, struggling, needing coffees to get through your day. But when we add in alcohol, it adds another stress to your body, and then it also decreases your cortisol more. So we're already seeing a lot of cortisol issues with you guys, but then alcohol adding to it decreases it even more. So with that, it starts decreasing, gets your sleep off track. It gets the short fuse going, and all kinds of other issues that are happening. The energy just completely gets zapped out of you. And the other one we're going to dive into right now is epinephrine and norepinephrine. So sorry, I just keep looking at my notes. So with that, they are in charge of your blood pressure, your heart rate, and they're in charge of your airways, getting all that oxygen to be able to fight that fight. So when you do need it, when you are in a stress system, it loses its abilities to do that as well. So we find with some guys that they're still good on a call, but they struggle just in regular, everyday, small stressors because your body isn't able to then handle the small things that are going on. And when you do get to those big ones, we find like there's some fire guys that have said that they're going through their training and they can't get their air in. They can't, just in a training exercise, the air isn't there. And not able to get yourself into that stress state all the time. And that is with alcohol, is that can start decreasing that hormone as well. And so this gets us into this really fascinating thing with alcohol. And I'm going to ask a question for you guys is, do you really, really, really like that taste of alcohol? Like after you've had 1 beer, 2 beer, 3 beer, does it still taste really, really good? Because it's fascinating because our body keeps craving it. And those cravings come from dopamine. So a great way to describe dopamine is like such as a dog. So dopamine is great for teaching your body to build habits. It's not necessarily teaching your body to build good habits. It's teaching them to build up habits. So if there's something that you're doing, the dopamine itself gets sent out and sends this signal to your body that it wants to do more of that. We get this with sugars. We get this with exercise. There can be good and bad things of it. If something is really good, then the dopamine gets you to actually remember what steps came into place in order to create that situation again. So we get these big cravings with alcohol. So we find that we want more and more. So we can look at a year ago, how much alcohol were you drinking? How much were you drinking 2 years ago? How much were you drinking 5, 10, 15? How much were you drinking? Does that slowly increase over time to where, you want that drink after work? Or you want that drink before you go to bed because your body is craving it. And the fascinating thing with that is when you crave something, then we have another part of our brain, which is the nucleus accumbens. I always say this one wrong. The nucleus accumbens. And what it is a part of the front of your brain, part of your brain. And it is what stimulates pleasure. So we find that like fun things like hanging out with your family, going to calls, really like loving to go to work, doing the hobbies you used to love to do. Those things are seeking pleasure. They're getting a pleasure response from the nucleus accumbens. But the thing is when we get to alcohol and drugs, which alcohol is a drug, is it stimulates that part of that brain even more. So when it's stimulating that part of the brain even more, then what happens is our body needs to keep in that homeostasis level. So it's like, whoa, this just got us this huge pleasure. And now we need to kind of bring it down. But when it happens over and over, your body just starts decreasing the pleasure that the nucleus accumbens is giving you from those things that really excite you. So you will always get a little bit more of a hit from alcohol, but you'll find that your tolerance goes up. So that's when you find that tolerance is actually that your nucleus accumbens is decreasing your pleasure sensations. And that's where we find too, hanging out with our kids or our spouse, going to work doesn't become this fun thing anymore. It doesn't give you that pleasure. The things you used to love to do, the pleasure goes away. So all of these things start happening, but because that dopamine is there still, you still get that craving. And with that craving are memories of the pleasure. But if we think back to it, when you really look at alcohol, is it when you're drinking alcohol, when we're thinking about alcohol, it's usually a group gathering, a social event. Was it the social event that was fun or the alcohol? Because when you're on your own drinking, does it make anything better? So it's one of those things where our mind plays tricks and our hormones plays tricks on us when we're really thinking of the dopamine, of giving us that habit forming craving. And then it starts decreasing that pleasure, but we want more pleasure, and it keeps increasing that craving. So the dopamine and the nucleus accumbens, that pleasure sensation, really do play a part with one another. And then we get to the third part as well, which is your prefrontal cortex. So it starts damaging the prefrontal cortex of your brain, where it starts decreasing the sensation when you're drunk, and long-term alcohol use decreases your ability to make decisions, to make like really good decisions. So when you're drunk, that's when we tend to drink and drive. That's when we tend to do things around the house that ends up in arguments. That's where we tend to make mistakes on the job. All of these things start coming into place. And if we look at them as a whole from what it's all doing to your body, I mean, I don't have to tell you guys, you know that alcohol is a drug. You know that it is all of these, that it really is not healthy and good for you, but we do it. It's part of our culture. We have this big culture of drinking everything. I know when little kids are seeing the parents drinking and they're not allowed, but they see them all supposedly having fun because they're at a fun gathering, right? You're at a barbecue, all this fun, and it's kind of starts being related with alcohol. And so as a kid, they're like, hey, can I have a sip, mom and dad? And you give it to them. And that starts sending off those certain cravings and stuff in their mouth too, where they start getting that really big pleasure hit. And they're like, ooh, this is good. Even though I don't know if any of you, tell me if I'm wrong, but has anybody ever liked their first sip of alcohol? Has it ever tasted good? Was it something that you kind of acquired a taste to, or did you really, really like it in the beginning? Is it just something because we saw everybody else enjoying it that we're like, oh, we're supposed to like this, and you start liking it? And if we get into really the big culture of it in first responder world, things are changing, but it used to be where a big trauma would happen and you would possibly go into the office of your coach, your superior officer, or you would, and a drink would be given to you, or afterwards you would be, everybody would go out for a drink after a big event. Quite often as well, after shifts, people would go for drinks. I don't know how much this is happening anymore. You guys can let me know. Every service is definitely going to be different, but I know for my husband, when he first started on the job, it was, they did 7 blocks of shifts, and the 7th day, they all went out for drinks after that shift. It was something they did every time you went out. There's always alcohol at every single event. And the thing is that your cortisol is always being thrown off. Your dopamine's already being thrown off, that we're throwing these things off more. So when we're looking at people too, like you guys have to make such tough tactical decisions. And if every day you're craving, or a couple of times a week, or frequently you're craving alcohol, if you can't sleep without alcohol, I'm not judging anybody, because I know how hard it is for you guys to fall asleep and to understand what your body truly needs, because none of you guys from any service that I've talked to so far understands how all of your sleep hormone and waking hormone and all of these things need help in order to be regulated on a shift schedule. So right there, that messes everything up. And you guys start doing anything and everything that you can to fall asleep. And the alcohol does relax your frontal lobe of your brain. It does make sometimes those thoughts go away. But I'm going to ask, is it ever fixing the root of the problem? Is it ever where we are really diving in, where we're really fixing what the problem is? Are we fixing all of these hormones so that they'll work for you, so that you don't feel the need to have alcohol? This doesn't mean you can't have social drinks and all of that. But when it gets to the point where you can't help that craving, you can't stop that craving, you may be one a drink a day, but you're craving it so bad that until you have it, you don't feel like you're okay, then that is telling us that your hormones are really off. And when we get the short fuse and we get your sleep off, it starts causing issues with your family, and you don't want to hang out with them anymore, disengaging from everything. Your job isn't exciting anymore. And you are somebody that is drinking on a regular basis. Then I'm going to ask, is this helping you? Is this really excelling you in your career? Are you getting those same hits from your workout? Is your body able to push as much as you need to keep yourself safe on the job? Like fire, you guys carry about 100 pounds of weight on you. And if you're not able to recover from workouts and your body's not able to do what it needs, and your body is craving alcohol on a regular basis, or social events become where drinking is just, if somebody does not have a drink, they're looked bad upon in your circles, then how are we supposed to stop this cycle of alcohol being looked towards as a solution to sometimes numb the night terrors, and the flashbacks that some are having? Like, if we need alcohol in order to fall asleep, then are we fixing the root cause of what's causing us to not fall asleep? If we need alcohol every single time that we go out, even when we are the ones driving home, which is the one thing that I found very fascinating when my husband would go out with the guys, is they would all drive home after. And after you've just done a 12-hour shift and your body is exhausted, how are you behind the wheel right then? What risks are you taking because of these effects that we spoke about earlier with the dopamine and your the nucleus accumbens? Sorry, that word always trips me up. But that frontal part of your brain that has that pleasure part of your brain. And when you get those two things meshing and competing and pulling you in, it makes you forget that. And with all of the cultural stuff that's going on around us, when it is a culture to drink, every conference that I go speak at, every time I go speak, there is alcohol. There is talk about alcohol. There's talk about drinks. It is a big part of the conversation. So I'm going to actually ask you guys, does alcohol need to be a big part of your culture? And if so, let me know why. Why does alcohol need to be such a large part of your culture? Do you enjoy, like, I know there's some services that after night shift, they'll go out and have breakfast together. Is that any more or less enjoyable than going out and having drinks, or going out and having drinks where you guys drink so much? What is more enjoyable? That breakfast with everybody where there's no alcohol involved, or the night out where everybody's just totally getting like hammered, and then they're struggling the next day to get through everything? They might be shorter with your kids, your spouse, maybe getting in fights with them, not able to be amorous with your spouse, either on a regular basis or after binge drinking. What is that doing to the safety of you guys on your job, the decisions that you're able to make, being able to support your stress systems so that you can handle all of the crap that is going on in this world right now? And you guys are involved in, like, man, all of the COVID, everything with COVID, and then we've got all the protests with COVID, and then we've got Black Lives Matters, and all of these things that are such stressors on you. How is drinking helping that? It may get you to forget it for a little bit, but it's not going away. So what would happen if we actually put things into place that got your system stronger, that supported your testosterone, that made it so you didn't need to be on testosterone shots, that allowed your body to be able to doing what it's doing so it could support you, so you were calmer and wanting to be a part of your family and hang out with your kids and be there with your wife and love your job again and really focus on everything that you are doing on a daily basis with everybody. Like, what was your conditioning and your shape when you started on the job? Most of you guys were very athletic. Most of you guys come from very athletic, pushing your bodies, type A peak performance guys and girls. And how does alcohol help you stay in that conditioning? How does it help with PTSD? How does it help prevent PTSD? How does it help you sleep? These are all questions that I'd love for you guys to think about. And if any of you would like help in getting your stress systems back on track, figuring out what in you, because it is different in everybody as to what is throwing off your systems. Which systems are being taxed? Is it your liver? Is it your kidneys? Is it your gallbladder? Is it all of the different hormones, your nervous system? Is it your digestive system? There's so many different things and it's different in each of you. So we need to take a look at each of you individually and figure out where's your stress system being taxed. If you would like help with that, let us know. You can email us at support@911lifestyle.com and we will ask you some questions to figure out where your stress system is at and if what we do is the best thing for you right now. Be honest with you, it's not for everybody. There's some that come to us that really need to dive into some therapies first. Although some people are at the point where they need their stress system supported before therapy will work for them as well. And some people don't need the therapy. They just need us getting their stress system back on track so they can get back into peak performance. So we need to find out those things from you first to find out what direction is best. So if you'd like any questions, if you have any questions, let us know. Support@911lifestyle.com and we will help you.